National Commission of Electricity. Transmission System Expansion Plan 2008-2018. Guatemala is located in a strategic region at the north of Central America. Its territorial extension consists of approximately 900,000 square kilometers, and it's surrounded by the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. Guatemala, also known as the country of the everlasting spring, has a tropical climate. This country is the home of 13 million residents, with an annual population growth rate approximately of 2.3%. Electricity subsector. The national electricity subsector is represented by the Ministry of Energy and Mines, state organism responsible for formulating and coordinating the politics, state plans, and indicative programs related to the energy sector. The National Commission of Electricity is the technical organism of the ministry in charge of executing and for making third parties comply with the general electricity law and its regulations. It is the regulating entity of the electricity subsector that creates favorable conditions, according to the Guatemalan Electricity Act, for the activities of generation, transmission, distribution, and electricity trading. The Wholesale Electricity Market Administrator is a private non-profit entity that coordinates the operation of the electrical national power system to a minimum cost, establishes short-term market prices, and guarantees the electricity supply and safety in the wholesale electricity market. The wholesale electricity market members are generator companies, transmission companies, utilities, energy traders, and large consumers. The Wholesale Electricity Market Administrator is responsible for collecting the charge or fee paid by the wholesale market members for the use of the electricity transmission facilities and fulfilling the monthly and anticipated fee remunerations to the proprietary transmission companies. Since its creation in 1998, the monthly and anticipated fee remunerations to the carriers have been effective, reflecting as a whole the wholesale market financial warranty and solvency. According to the electricity subsector statistics, the maximum demand was 1,430 megawatts and 7,853 gigawatts per hour, reporting 120 megawatts per hour average electricity price. 2.3 million consumers and 85.1% electrification coverage. Behind every socket and light bulb of a house, there's a network of installations and equipment that makes it possible to access electricity. This electricity comes from distribution networks, which are the ones in charge of taking the electricity across cables and towers through the transmission network. Given that the power plants are located in places which are distant from the load centers, it is necessary to transmit the electricity across kilometers of high-voltage networks and substations from the power plants to the distribution areas or load centers in an efficient way. At present, the Guatemalan transmission network has a main infrastructure that allows supplying of electricity from the main generation centers to the load centers through a network approximately 1,009 kilometers long, in voltage levels of 138,000 and 230,000 volts. About 2,500 kilometers of transmission lines for a voltage level of 69,000 volts allow the supply to the distribution system and the large consumers. In the short term, Guatemala requires new investments in transmission capacities and substations according to the safety, quality, and performance criterions of an efficient power transmission system. Today, we have radial networks, which are vulnerable to natural events and technical flaws, given that the loss of any of its elements could cause total blackouts. Therefore, urgent actions that allow the construction of a new power transmission infrastructure are required in order to guarantee the electricity supply and the stability of the electrical national power system. To satisfy this urgent need, the National Commission of Electricity, as a regulating authority of the sector, prepared the first transmission system expansion plan, according to what was established by the amendments to the bylaws of the Guatemalan Electricity Act, issued at the end of 2007. The plan pursues promoting the development of private investments in the power transmission network. The transmission system expansion plan is based on the creation of electrical loops compounded by substations and transmission lines, with the goal of offering more alternatives of transmitting the electricity produced in the power plants to the load centers and offering the technical security that guarantees the continuity of supply. The future conditions of electricity consumption, taking into account the indicative generation system expansion plan, were simulated and the proportions of the optimum networks that complied with the quality and security standards were determined. The implementation of the transmission system expansion plan will increase the reliability and also improve the quality of the supply, minimizing the frequency and duration of the failures. Likewise, it will simulate the change of the electricity mix, promoting the investments in renewable resources and efficient electricity generation technologies. Electrical loops. The Metro Pacific Loop is located in the central and southern regions of the country and will have a length of 144 kilometers of transmission lines of 230 kilovolts, 4 substations, 13 transmission reinforcements, and equipment substitution in the facilities, with an approximated cost of $119 million. Its main objective is to guarantee the provision and supply of electricity to the biggest load center of the country, the Department of Guatemala. Because of the transport logistics and fuel supply from Port Quetzal, the Metro Pacific Loop will be able to transmit the electricity generated in efficient thermal plants located on the Pacific coast to the load centers. It will have a total transfer capability of 1,500 megawatts to the other loops, which is equivalent to supplying electricity to 750,000 Guatemalan homes. The hydraulic loop will promote investments in the northwestern area of the country, an area which has the greatest hydro potential in the country. This exploitation will contribute, because of the use of renewable resources, to the stabilization of the production costs of electricity, specifically the hydropower plants and the energy independency. It will have 230 kilovolts transmission lines with the length of 464 kilometers, 7 substations, and 1 transmission reinforcement, at an estimated cost of $109 million and approximated total transfer capability of 1,500 megawatts towards the other loops. The Atlantic Loop will be located in the eastern and northeastern region with 585 kilometers of transmission lines and 4 substations with an approximated cost of $116 million. This loop will contribute with the development of the industrial and commercial plants of the posts in the Atlantic Ocean, making use of its geographic location. The increase of the transmission capacity is important to transmit both the thermal and hydropower production that may enter into operation in the future. The Eastern Loop. The Eastern Loop's operation will free the existing transmission restrictions and will guarantee the power transmission demand in this area, with the length of 55 kilometers and 4 substations in the southeastern region of the country, and an estimated cost of $17 million. The Western Loop. The Western Loop is made up to the Esperanza-Sololá-Las Cruces South Guatemala transmission line. This line contributes with the evacuation of electricity coming from the hydraulic loop, and it also implies that, if necessary, it will be able to dispose of a greater import capacity of electricity from Mexico. Likewise, this line represents a greater availability, which will guarantee the supply to the central area, being of the great importance to the transmission system in Guatemala. The Western Loop will have 146 kilometers of lines, 4 substations, and 3 transmission reinforcements in the facilities, with a cost of approximately $62 million. Chixoy 2 El Rancho Line. This line is part of a hydraulic and Atlantic loops. Its importance resides in increasing the capacity of evacuating the production coming from both loops. This makes it possible to make better use of the hydro potential of the northwestern zone of the country, guaranteeing stability in the operational costs of the system and greater energy independence. But above all, greater security in the supplying of electricity that comes from that important region. The loops will compound a new electrical power transmission infrastructure of approximately 1,400 kilometers of lines, which will be equivalent to traveling in a straight line from Guatemala City to Panama City. Savings. The total implementation of the transmission system expansion plan will allow savings of $2,036.9 million in thermal operation costs during the years 2008 and 2014 because of substitution of thermal production for the hydro production. And from the year 2015, it will allow average annual savings of approximately $22.9 million. Likewise, it represents a reduction of the transmission losses of approximately $109.6 million for the period of 2008-2018, years in which the transmission lines will already be built. This means that savings for the concept of annual transmission losses are foreseen at approximately $10.9 million. Likewise, the savings in the short-run marginal cost are estimated with the complete expansion plan rising to a total of $176.5 million. The estimated savings that represents the total construction of the 2008-2018 transmission system expansion plan will be of $504 million. The 2008-2018 transmission system expansion plan has its main goal, making sure that the interconnected national system complies with the quality criterions established in the current standards, guaranteeing the electricity supply and created a platform of competitive prices for the next years. Plan implementation. The National Commission of Electricity, with the objective of encouraging private investments in the transmission network, will execute open biddings for the development of the project part of the transmission system expansion plan. The biddings will be performed by means of a new innovative, clear, and competitive auction mechanism for the evaluation of the bidders, implemented for the first time in Guatemala. The bidders that come out as winners in the bidding process will receive, as remuneration, an annual payment during the amortization period, and once this period has terminated, they will receive the transmission fee that the Commission establishes. This guarantees the return of the investment for the winners. National Commission of Electricity, regulating electricity for development.